Hello, it is 11th of May 2014, Sunday. I'm reacting to the headlines in the Sunday Times, which is there is 100+ billionaires now living in England. Well, this comes as no surprise, and all this stuff is happening quicker than what I thought. I've been doing all these video casts about this situation, but I didn't realise how quickly it's happening. I was kind of projecting onto the not too distant future, but we're already there. So never mind the 100+ billionaires in the UK, 73 of them in London apparently. How many multi-millionaires are there? How many people living in this country have got over 20 million, for example? Must be hundreds of thousands. This is the way things are going in this country, whilst the rest of us are being plunged into poverty and insecurity, both physical and psychological. So here we have a situation where multi-millionaires vastly outnumber the amount of committed revolutionaries that want to overthrow the society. I mean committed conscious revolutionaries, not stupid party hacks parroting sort of SWP or Bolshevik Marxist Leninist propaganda Trotsky rubbish. But this is not all. Let me give you an example of how things have gone in the last few weeks. I mentioned this on, I think, my last podcast, but an apartment has gone for sale in London, as has been sold, for £140 million. In Battersea, £500 million worth of apartments were sold, mostly to overseas investors, and they haven't even been built yet. In Tower Hamlets, once regarded about 2 or 3 years ago as the poorest borough in the country, despite Canary Wharf and so forth, with 20,000 people on the waiting list for a council accommodation. I have seen that up Brick Lane the other day, they had a new build apartment, nothing special, going for £750 a week. Last week it had gone up to £790 a week. I'm just waiting for the first £1,000 a week flat in Tower Hamlets, and I'll do a special broadcast on that. And also the Shangri-La Hotel has just opened up in the Shard that overlooks where I live. £450 a night to stay in that place. Why do they come over here? Well, they come over here because, or so they say, these billionaires, because of obviously the tax breaks. Because you're a billionaire, tax breaks, you really need the money, don't you? The cultural scene, the educational scene, the vibrancy of London, the educational opportunities, as I've said before. It's a world city. Of course, the real reason they're coming is because they've got a load of suck-ass politicians from every political party that support them and welcome them coming here. And also they think that there's no danger of any political upheaval or revolution. That's the other reason that they come in, because our ruling class is so safe, has never been challenged. There is political upheaval going on here, but it's to the right and it's phony. It's UKIP. It's not, it's just right-wing populism. None of them are coming out against the rich. They're only coming out against the overseas poor. People like us. I mean, for example, we had saw on television the other day Lord Digby Jones, who was put in the House of Lords by Labour, actually celebrating the fact that there was a flat being sold for £140 million. He was almost going into a state of rapture about it, actually. Really embarrassing to watch. And it's funny, isn't it, how UKIP, the Conservatives and Labour as well are stirring up over EU migration, yet none of them have said a word about this takeover of the country by the super rich from abroad. Not a peep. The Pfizer AstraZeneca takeover, plus the fact that all our industry has been sold to overseas investors and assets stripped, it'll all go ahead. They're not going to do anything to stop it. It's going ahead on all levels: education, housing, health, the lot. The yuppie, ultra-rich domes are rising in triumph over the skyline of London. Go up to a high spot and check it out. Labour's solution to all this, or that of the left, is sticking plaster over a gaping shrapnel wound. Won't do anything. Pass this law, pass that law. It's gone beyond laws. It's gone beyond even people forming tenants associations. It's gone completely beyond that, and is heading that way. As I say, it's too late for demonstrations. Too late. Too late for uniting the grassroots. Look at all those demonstrations against the cuts, for example. What did they achieve? Absolutely nothing. Nothing whatsoever. Of course, if they'd have been like on a continental star, then we may have been able to arrest this hideous progress that we're going through. Billionaires and multimillionaires taking the country over. This is why the only solution, as I say on every single podcast, is to get out on the streets before they're privatised. Get out onto the streets en masse. It's the only solution. There's no point in dreaming up any sort of party political manifesto solutions, because it's gone beyond this point. There aren't any. It's up to us. There's tens of millions of people are now being affected by the sort of roll-on for this housing bubble in London, where people as far away in Cornwall, indigenous people, can't afford even to rent a flat, let alone buy a property. It's no longer about buying property, it's about being able to get onto the housing ladder. That's only an illusion for the vast majority of people. It's a struggle to pay the rent. The average rent in Tower Hamlets, a private, is about between £450 and £500 a week. How on earth are you going to pay that when your wages before tax only probably come to about two-thirds of that? It's impossible. It's gone beyond a joke. It's gone beyond. There's no space. You can't squat, because squatting is now illegal. Something that, again, all the political parties agree with. You can only squat in commercial premises. And even then you'll probably be evicted after a few months. And even then that loophole's going. So, what can we do? As I said, out on the streets, revolution, only solution. But what's going to get us out on the streets? Because they've been kicking us right, left and centre, just about every way you can imagine, from not giving most people a wage rise for years, the ultra-rich getting richer and richer, millions being given out in bonuses, jobs for the boys and the girls. Decadence. Go up to Millionaires Row in Hampstead, amongst some of the most expensive property in London, and a third of the mansions there are in a state of decay. The roofs caving in, trees growing through the roofs, rare owls sort of nesting in the rafters and so on. It's almost like an illustration of London and what it's become for millionaires. And if the millionaires ain't living there in their mansions, let them crumble, let them rot, which is going to be the same with the hundreds of thousands of flats that are being bought for investments in London that will never be lived in. Only a revolutionary situation would make sure that those flats were occupied by the homeless or by people that fancied an upgrade, like myself. I could do with an extra room. There's no political solution to it. Nobody's got any answers. The only answer to it, as I say, a revolutionary outburst on the streets, and that's where it starts. And how are people going to come out on the streets? What is going to get them out? Well, the only thing I think that can get them out is the collapse of this housing bubble, because the rest of the economy seems to be obscenely tied up with it. Without the housing bubble, we wouldn't have had a financial recovery, because it's certainly not in the industrial sector or any other sector. It's only the service sector, servicing the rich, and it's only the financial sector, which employs hundreds of thousands of overpaid pigs that work in the city. They're not part of the working class, incidentally, all you pointy heads out there. They're scum, just like the millionaires, that most of them are only millionaires in single figures, and the multimillionaires and the billionaires that they support, who are all supported by our government, irrespective of political stripe. So, as I say, let's get out onto the streets. It'll have to be something dramatic, or maybe something irrelevant that will get us up. But that is our only solution. We have no other solution. But before I say goodbye, I'd like to go back on my last video cast when I think I went a bit over the top. Now, I never go back on anything I say unless I've made a glaring statistical error or something like that, in which case I will. But I'm going back on saying that I think it would be a great idea if society, rather than the state or whatever, that we deported all these hate imams, gurus, and African church and Brazilian church nutcases that come over here and abuse women and children and create that climate. I may have been a bit over the top saying that. Really, what I should have said is I never have fucking let him in the country in the first place. So, with that happy message, I wish you good afternoon.